The yacht exploded in a burst of flames and splintering, with that sent Rebecca Lawson flying through the air and into the black water below, her scream swallowed by the roar of the blast and the sudden shocking cold that enveloped her body as she hit the ocean. She surfaced gasping, ears ringing, eyes burning from salt water and smoke. The yacht that belonged to her best friend's family was now a distant inferno on the horizon, already impossibly far away. Rebecca treaded water, her heart hammering against her ribs as panic threatened to consume her completely. She had been standing at the railing, away from everyone else at the party, when something in the engine room had gone catastrophically wrong. The explosion had thrown her clear of the boat, which now meant she was alone in the dark ocean with no life vest and no one who had seen her go overboard. "Help!" she screamed, but the wind carried her voice away. The yacht was moving, getting smaller. They did not know she was missing yet. They might not know for hours. Rebecca's muscles were already starting to ache from treading water. She forced herself to breathe slowly, to think. She was a strong swimmer. She had grown up in California, spent every summer at the beach. She could do this. She just needed to stay calm and conserve energy. Then she saw it, a dark shape against the stars. Land. An island maybe half a mile away. It was her only chance. Rebecca started swimming, her party dress tangling around her legs, her heels long since kicked off into the depths below. The current fought her with every stroke, pulling her sideways, exhausting her. Time became meaningless. There was only the burning in her shoulders, the salt water she kept swallowing, the island that never seemed to get any closer. When her feet finally scraped sand, she almost cried. Rebecca crawled onto the beach and collapsed, coughing up seawater, her whole body shaking. She lay there for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes before she managed to sit up and look around. The beach was pristine white sand, bordered by palm trees and dense tropical vegetation. In the distance, barely visible in the moonlight, she could see lights. A house. Someone lived here. Relief flooded through her so intensely that she did start crying then, tears mixing with the salt water still dripping from her hair. Rebecca struggled to her feet, her legs unsteady, and started walking toward the lights. The sand gave way to a stone path that wound through a manicured garden. The house came into view gradually, and when it did, Rebecca stopped walking and stared. It was not a house. It was a mansion. Modern architecture with floor-to-ceiling windows, multiple levels built into the hillside, infinity pools that seemed to glow from within. This was not some random island. This was someone's private paradise. She climbed the steps to the front entrance, her bare feet leaving wet prints on the smooth stone. Before she could knock, the door swung open and a man stood there, silhouetted against the warm light from inside. "What the hell are you doing on my island?" he demanded. Rebecca opened her mouth to explain, and the world tilted sideways. The last thing she remembered was the man's arms catching her before she hit the ground. She woke up in the most comfortable bed she had ever felt, wrapped in soft sheets that smelled like lavender. For a moment, Rebecca could not remember where she was or how she had gotten there. Then it all came rushing back. The explosion, the swim, the mansion. Rebecca sat up quickly and immediately regretted it as her head spun. She was wearing clothes that were not hers, an oversized t-shirt and cotton shorts. Someone had changed her while she was unconscious, and she did not know whether to be grateful or mortified. The room she was in was enormous, decorated in calming neutral tones with artwork that looked expensive. Through the windows, she could see the ocean sparkling in morning sunlight. How long had she been asleep? The door opened and the man from last night walked in carrying a tray. In the daylight, Rebecca could see him clearly for the first time. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair slightly too long and piercing blue eyes that studied her with an intensity that made her stomach flutter, despite everything. He wore simple clothes, jeans and a white linen shirt with the sleeves rolled up, but he carried himself with the kind of confidence that came from owning everything around him. "You are awake," he said, setting the tray on the bedside table. It held toast, fruit, and orange juice. "How do you feel?" "Like I almost drowned," Rebecca said, her voice raspy. "Where am I, my island, my house, my guest room?" He crossed his arms. "Now you answer my question. How did you get here?" Rebecca explained about the yacht, the explosion, swimming to shore. He listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. "The yacht that exploded last night," he said when she finished. "That was the Meridian. Yes, you know it. I heard the emergency calls on the radio. Everyone on board was rescued. They are all safe." His jaw tightened. "No one reported you missing." The words hit her like a slap. No one had noticed she was gone. The party had been crowded, full of people she barely knew. Her friend Sarah had invited her at the last minute when someone else canceled. Sarah had been drunk, dancing, surrounded by other friends. Of course she had not noticed Rebecca was missing. "I need to call someone," Rebecca said. "Let them know I am alive. I need to get off this island." "The mainland is 40 miles away," the man said. "My boat is being repaired. It will not be ready for 3 days. 3 days. I cannot stay here for 3 days. You do not have much choice." He moved toward the door. "Eat something. There are clothes in the closet that should fit you. We can discuss the details once you have recovered." "Wait," Rebecca called. "What is your name?" He paused in the doorway. "Trenton Quade." The name sounded vaguely familiar, but she could not place it. "Thank you for saving my life, Trenton." His expression softened slightly, just for a moment. "You are welcome, Rebecca." "How do you know my name?" "Your ID was in your dress pocket." "I put your things in the bathroom to dry." Then he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him. Rebecca ate the food because her body was demanding fuel, then explored the attached bathroom. Her dress hung over the shower door, still damp but no longer dripping. Her phone sat on the counter, completely dead from the salt water. She showered, washing the salt and sand from her hair, then looked through the closet. The clothes were all women's clothes in her size, which was strange. Did Trenton have a girlfriend, a wife? But everything still had tags on it, never worn. Rebecca chose a simple sundress in pale blue and ventured out of the bedroom. The house was even more impressive in daylight. She wandered through rooms with vaulted ceilings and contemporary art, past a kitchen that looked like something from a magazine, until she found Trenton on a deck overlooking the ocean. He was working on a laptop, papers spread across the table in front of him. "Feel better?" he asked without looking up. "Much better. Thank you for the clothes. I keep a variety of sizes on hand for guests." He still had not looked at her, his focus on whatever he was working on. "You have many guests?" "No." The single word was like a door slamming. Rebecca sat down across from him anyway. "I need to contact people. Let them know I am alive. Do you have a phone I could use?" Trenton finally looked up, and something flickered in his eyes when he saw her in the sundress. "I made some calls this morning. Your friend Sarah has been notified that you are safe. The Coast Guard knows your location. Everyone who needs to know has been informed. You did that without asking me. You were unconscious. Someone needed to do it." Rebecca bit back her irritation. He was right, and he had saved her life. "Thank you. Can I still call my family? My mom will be worried." He slid his phone across the table. Rebecca dialed her mother's number from memory. The call went straight to voicemail. She tried her sister next, same result. Finally, she called Sarah. "Rebecca, oh my God, I have been so worried." "Are you really okay?" Sarah's voice was tearful. "I am fine. tired and sore but fine. Sarah, what happened? I was just standing there and then everything exploded. They think it was a gas leak in the engine room. It was so scary. I did not even realize you were gone until we got to shore and I could not find you. I thought you had died, I thought. Sarah broke down crying. Rebecca felt guilty for being irritated that no one had noticed her missing. Sarah clearly cared. I am okay. I swam to an island, and the owner has been taking care of me. When can you come home? A few days. His boat is broken. They talked for a few more minutes before Rebecca hung up and passed the phone back to Trenton. He was watching her with that intense gaze again. Your family did not answer, he observed. My mom is probably at work. She is a nurse. She works long shifts. My sister is in college. She never answers her phone. Rebecca did not mention that neither of them would be particularly worried even if they had heard about the accident. Her family loved her, but they were not close. They never had been. You are welcome to try again later. Trenton gathered his papers. I need to work. Make yourself at home. The kitchen is fully stocked. There is a pool, a library, a home theater, whatever you need. What do you do? Rebecca asked. For work, I mean. I invest in things. What kind of things? Profitable things. He stood, clearly done with the conversation. Excuse me. Rebecca watched him go, frustrated by his curtness. She was going to be stuck here for 3 days with the most antisocial man she had ever met. She spent the rest of the day exploring the island. It was larger than she had realized, with the mansion at the highest point and gardens that led down to multiple beaches. There was a greenhouse growing vegetables and herbs, a tennis court, even a small dock with a boat lift that currently held a sleek yacht under repair. Rebecca did not see Trenton again until dinner. She had found the kitchen and was attempting to make herself a sandwich when he appeared. I usually eat at 7, he said. You are welcome to join me. It was not exactly a warm invitation, but Rebecca was tired of being alone. Okay, thank you. Dinner was already prepared somehow. Grilled fish, roasted vegetables, fresh bread. It was delicious, and Rebecca said so. I have a cook who comes 3 times a week and prepares meals, Trenton explained. She was here this morning. They ate in silence for a while. Rebecca kept sneaking glances at him, trying to figure him out. He was handsome, there was no denying that, but he seemed determined to keep as much distance between them as possible. How long have you owned this island? She asked finally. 4 years. Do you live here full time? Yes. That must be lonely. His eyes met hers sharp. I prefer solitude. Why? That is none of your business. Rebecca set down her fork. Look, I get that you did not ask for a guest and I am disrupting your life. But we are stuck together for 3 days, so maybe we could try to be civil. Trenton leaned back in his chair, studying her. You are right. I apologize. I am not used to company, clearly. Rebecca smiled to show she was not angry. Tell me something about yourself, anything. He considered this. I am 32 years old. I grew up in New York. I made my first million when I was 24. I bought this island when I was 28 and I have been here ever since. Rebecca did the math. So you have been alone on this island for 4 years. I have staff that come and go. I take trips to the mainland occasionally for business. But yes, essentially. Why? Why do you ask so many questions? Because I am curious, and because you are the most mysterious person I have ever met. Rebecca took a sip of wine. What did you do to make your first million? I developed software that predicted market trends. I sold the company for considerably more than $1 million. He paused. You said you worked as a photographer. Rebecca was surprised he remembered. She must have mentioned it during her rambling explanation last night. I am trying to. Right now, I mostly do weddings and family portraits. But I want to do more artistic work eventually. What kind of artistic work? Landscapes. nature photography. I want to travel, see the world, capture beautiful moments." She laughed. "It is not very practical. It does not pay the bills. If money were not an issue, would you still do it?" "Of course, I love it. It is the only thing I have ever loved doing." Trenton nodded slowly. "Then you should do it. Life is too short to spend it doing things you do not love." There was something sad in his voice, something haunted. Rebecca wanted to ask about it, but she could tell he would not answer. He had already shared more than he intended. After dinner, they sat on the deck watching the sun set over the ocean. The sky turned brilliant shades of orange and pink, reflecting off the water. "This is incredible," Rebecca breathed. "I wish I had my camera." "I have a camera you could use, professional grade." "Really? You do photography?" "I used to." He stood. "I will get it for you." He returned with a camera that made Rebecca's eyes widen. It was top of the line, the kind of equipment she could only dream of owning. Her hands trembled slightly as she took it from him. "This must have cost thousands of dollars," she said, "closer to 10,000, with the lenses." Rebecca looked up at him sharply. "Trenton Quade. Investor. Private island. $10,000 camera he did not use." Suddenly, she realized exactly who he was. "You are that Trenton Quade," she said. "The billionaire who disappeared. I remember now. There were articles about you. You were some kind of tech genius, and then you just vanished from public life." His jaw tightened. "I did not vanish. I retired. At 28. I had accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. I had more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. I wanted peace." "So you bought an island and became a hermit?" "Yes." He turned to go back inside. "You can keep the camera. I do not use it anymore." Rebecca called after him. "Trenton, wait. I did not mean to offend you." He paused but did not turn around. "You did not. Good night, Rebecca." She watched him disappear into the house, feeling like she had just ruined something fragile. The articles she remembered had been full of speculation about why the brilliant young billionaire had withdrawn from society. Some said he had a breakdown. Others claimed he was working on something revolutionary in secret. No one seemed to know the truth. Rebecca lifted the camera and pointed it at the sunset. Through the lens, the colors were even more vivid, more alive. She started shooting, losing herself in the familiar rhythm of composition and light. When the last rays of sun disappeared below the horizon, she lowered the camera and realized Trenton had come back outside. He stood in the doorway, watching her. "You are very good at that," he said quietly. "Thank you." Rebecca walked over to him. "I am sorry if I brought up painful memories." "The memories are not painful. They are just not who I am anymore." He met her eyes. "I left that life because it was killing me. The constant pressure, the expectations, everyone wanting something from me. I could not breathe. Here I can breathe." Rebecca understood then. He was not antisocial. He was protecting himself. "I will not tell anyone where you are," she promised. "Your secret is safe with me." Something shifted in his expression, a crack in the armor he kept around himself. "I appreciate that. Would you like to watch a movie? I have a rather extensive collection." They ended up in the home theater, which was absurdly luxurious with reclining leather seats and a screen that took up an entire wall. Trenton let Rebecca choose the movie, and she picked an old romantic comedy that made her laugh. She noticed that Trenton smiled a few times too, though he tried to hide it. When the movie ended, it was late. Rebecca stood and stretched, suddenly aware of how close she was sitting to him. "Thank you for tonight. This was nice." "It was," Trenton agreed, and he sounded almost surprised. "Tomorrow, if you want, I could show you some of the better spots on the island for photography." "I would love that." She went to bed feeling lighter than she had in months, maybe years. There was something about this place, about Trenton, that made her feel alive in a way she had forgotten was possible. The next morning, Trenton was waiting for her after breakfast, wearing hiking boots and carrying a backpack. He handed her a bottle of water and a hat to protect her from the sun. "Ready for an adventure?" he asked, and there was a hint of a smile playing at his lips. They hiked through the jungle interior of the island, following paths that Trenton had clearly made himself. He pointed out different plants and birds, naming them with ease. He had learned the ecosystem of his island intimately. "You really love it here," Rebecca observed. "I do. It is the first place I have ever felt at home." "What about New York, where you grew up?" Trenton pushed aside a branch so she could pass. "My childhood was not happy. My parents were more interested in their careers than their children. I have a brother I have not spoken to in 5 years. New York was just a place I survived until I could escape." "I am sorry. That must have been lonely." "It was, but it taught me to be self-sufficient." He glanced back at her. "What about your family?" "My dad left when I was 10. My mom did her best, but she was always working. My older sister resented having to help raise me. We are not close." Rebecca shrugged. "I guess we both know something about being alone." They emerged from the jungle onto a cliff overlooking the ocean. The view was breathtaking, the water a dozen shades of blue and green, waves crashing against rocks far below. "This is it," Trenton said. "The best view on the island." Rebecca was already raising the camera, capturing the scene from every angle. Trenton sat on a flat rock and watched her work, and she found herself hyper-aware of his gaze. When she finally lowered the camera, he was looking at her with an expression she could not quite read. "You light up when you are behind that camera," he said, "like everything else fades away." "It does," Rebecca admitted. "When I am taking pictures, nothing else matters. All the stress and worry just disappears." I used to feel that way about coding. Writing elegant solutions to complex problems, it was like meditation. He looked out at the ocean. "I have not felt that way in a long time." Rebecca sat down next to him, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "Maybe you just need to find a new passion. Something that challenges you in a different way. Maybe." He turned to look at her, and suddenly the air between them felt charged with possibility. "Rebecca," his phone buzzed. Trenton pulled it out, frowning at the screen. "The boat repair is taking longer than expected. The part they need has to be ordered from the mainland. It will be at least 5 more days." 5 more days. Rebecca should have been upset, but she realized she was not. The thought of spending more time here, more time with Trenton, made her heart beat faster. "I guess I am stuck with you a while longer then." "I guess you are." Trenton's eyes searched her face. "Is that a problem?" "No," Rebecca said softly. "It is not a problem at all." They stayed on the cliff for hours, talking about everything and nothing. Trenton told her about the books he had been reading, the philosophy he had been studying. Rebecca told him about her dreams of traveling to Iceland and New Zealand, capturing the northern lights and the dramatic landscapes. The conversation flowed easily now, all the awkwardness from the first day gone. When they finally hiked back to the house, the sun was setting again. Rebecca was sunburned and exhausted and happier than she could remember being in years. Over the next few days, they fell into a comfortable routine. Mornings were spent exploring the island, with Rebecca taking thousands of pictures. Afternoons they would retreat to the air-conditioned house, where Trenton worked on his investments, and Rebecca edited her photos on his high-powered computer. Evenings were for dinners that stretched for hours, conversations that ranged from silly to profound, and movies in the home theater where they sat closer together each night. On the 4th day, Rebecca woke to the sound of rain pounding against the windows. She found Trenton in the kitchen making coffee. "Tropical storm," he explained. "It should pass by tomorrow, but we are stuck inside today." I have been in worse places to be stuck." Rebecca accepted the coffee mug he handed her. Their fingers brushed, and the contact sent electricity up her arm. Trenton felt it too. She could tell by the way his breath caught, the way his eyes darkened as they looked at her. He did not pull away. "Rebecca," he said quietly, "these past few days with you have been—" "I know," she whispered. "For me too." He set down his coffee mug and stepped closer. Rebecca's heart was racing. She knew what was about to happen, and she wanted it more than she had wanted anything in a long time. When Trenton kissed her, it was gentle at first, tentative, like he was afraid she might pull away. But Rebecca leaned into him, her hands finding his shoulders, and the kiss deepened. It was perfect and terrifying and felt like coming home all at once. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathless. Trenton rested his forehead against hers. "I did not plan this," he said. "I did not want to feel this way." "Why not?" "Because you are going to leave. The boat will be fixed and you will go back to your life and I will be alone again." His voice cracked slightly. "I had accepted being alone. I had made peace with it. And then you showed up and reminded me what I have been missing." Rebecca cupped his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. "What if I do not want to leave? Your whole life is back on the mainland. Your career, your family, your friends." "My career is taking wedding photos that pay the bills but bore me to tears. My family barely notices when I am around. My friends are Sarah's friends, not really mine." Rebecca kissed him again, softer this time. "There is nothing waiting for me there, Trenton, nothing that matters. You have known me for 4 days. I know, it is crazy, but I feel more connected to you than I have felt to anyone in years, maybe ever." She smiled. "Besides, you promised to show me the sea caves on the east side of the island. I cannot leave before I see those." Trenton laughed, the sound rusty from disuse but genuine. "The sea caves, very important, extremely important." They spent the rainy day curled up on the couch, kissing and talking and learning each other. Trenton told her about the panic attacks that had started when his company got big, the way he would wake up in the middle of the night unable to breathe. He told her about the day he realized he would rather give it all up than spend one more day living like that. Rebecca told him about the photography scholarship she had won in high school, how excited she had been about art school until her mom got sick, and she had to stay close to home, how she had slowly let go of her dreams, settling for safe and practical instead of passionate and risky. "You could pursue your dreams now," Trenton said, his fingers tracing patterns on her arm. "Money does not have to be a barrier anymore, not if you stay." "Is that an invitation?" "It is a plea." He turned to face her fully. "Stay, Rebecca, for as long as you want. Take pictures, travel if you want to, I will come with you. Or stay here and photograph the island. There are 1,000 places you have not seen yet. Just do not go back to that life that was making you miserable." Rebecca wanted to say yes. Every cell in her body wanted to say yes. But fear held her back. "This is moving so fast. What if we are caught up in the romance of the situation? What if this is not real? It feels pretty real to me." Trenton kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "But I understand. Think about it. You have time." The storm passed overnight, and the morning dawned clear and bright. Trenton made good on his promise to show Rebecca the sea caves. They kayaked around the eastern edge of the island, where the limestone cliffs were full of caverns carved by thousands of years of waves. Inside the caves, the water glowed an otherworldly blue, and the sound of the ocean echoed off the stone walls. "This is magical," Rebecca breathed, her camera clicking constantly. "How did you find this place?" "I spent the first year just exploring every inch of the island," Trenton said. "I needed to understand it, to feel like I knew every secret it held." They pulled the kayaks onto a small beach inside one of the larger caves and sat on the sand, watching the light dance on the water. I have been thinking about what you said, Rebecca told him. About staying. Trenton went very still beside her. And, I am scared, I barely know you, this could be the biggest mistake of my life. She turned to look at him. But going back to my old life feels like a bigger mistake. At least here I am alive. I feel things. I want things. Back home, I was just going through the motions. So stay. He took her hand, lacing their fingers together. Not forever if you do not want to, just stay for a while, see what happens. What about the practical things? I have an apartment, bills, a life I cannot just abandon. I will buy out your lease. I will pay whatever needs to be paid. Money is not an issue, Rebecca. The only issue is whether you want to be here. His blue eyes were intense on hers. Do you want to be here with me? Yes, Rebecca whispered. I do. Trenton kissed her then, and it was different from the kisses before. This one was a promise, a beginning. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were smiling. They spent the rest of the day making plans. Rebecca would go back to the mainland for a few weeks, tie up loose ends, pack up her important belongings. Trenton would arrange for movers to handle the rest. She would tell her family and friends that she was taking an extended trip, pursuing her photography dreams. It was not even a lie. I do not want you to feel trapped here, Trenton said that evening as they watched the sunset from the deck. If you want to travel, to take assignments, whatever you need to do for your career, we will make it work. What about you? Will you come with me? He considered this. I have avoided the world for 4 years. Maybe it is time to stop hiding. He pulled her closer. Besides, I do not want to be apart from you. The boat was finally repaired 2 days later. The mechanic arrived in the morning, and by afternoon the yacht was running smoothly again. Rebecca stood on the dock, looking at the boat that would take her back to the mainland, and felt a twist of anxiety in her stomach. Having second thoughts? Trenton asked softly. Just first-day jitters, Rebecca said, trying to smile. I will be back in 3 weeks. That is not so long. It feels long. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. Promise me you will not change your mind. I promise. She turned in his arms to kiss him. I am coming back, Trenton. This is real. We are real. The boat ride to the mainland took 2 hours. Trenton came with her, insisting on making sure she got home safely. They barely talked during the journey, both lost in their own thoughts. When they reached the marina, Trenton helped her onto the dock and pulled her into a tight embrace. 3 weeks, he said against her hair. 3 weeks, Rebecca agreed. She called Sarah from a taxi, and her friend insisted on meeting her at her apartment immediately. When Sarah arrived, she took one look at Rebecca's face and squealed. Oh my God, something happened. Tell me everything. Rebecca told her, leaving out the parts about Trenton being a billionaire. She just said she had fallen for the man who saved her life, and that she was moving to be with him. Sarah listened with wide eyes. This is insane. You have known him for a week. I know. You are really going to give up your life here and move to an island? Yes. Sarah studied her for a long moment, then broke into a grin. Good for you. I have never seen you look this happy. If he breaks your heart, though, I will find a way to get to that island and murder him. Deal. Rebecca hugged her friend. Thank you for understanding. The next 3 weeks were a whirlwind. Rebecca gave notice on her apartment and sold or donated most of her furniture. She told her mother and sister that she was taking a photography job abroad, which was vague enough to be believable. She booked sessions with all her remaining wedding clients and referred the rest to other photographers. She talked to Trenton every night, long phone calls where they shared every detail of their days. He told her about the garden he was expanding, the new telescope he had ordered so they could look at stars together. She told him about the stress of packing, the exhaustion of tying up loose ends, how much she missed him. 2 more days, he said on the phone one night. Then you will be home. Home. Rebecca realized that was exactly how she thought of the island now, not as Trenton's home but as theirs. On the day she was supposed to leave, Rebecca woke up with a raging fever. She dragged herself to the bathroom and threw up, her body shaking with chills. Food poisoning, probably from the cheap takeout she had eaten the night before. She called Trenton with tears streaming down her face. "I am sick. I am so sick and I cannot get on a plane like this. I am going to have to postpone." "How sick?" His voice was sharp with concern. "Do you need to see a doctor?" "I already called one. She said it should pass in a day or two. I just need to rest and stay hydrated." Rebecca coughed. "I am sorry. I know you were expecting me today." "I do not care about that. I care about you. Do you have someone to check on you?" "Make sure you are okay. Sarah is coming over after work." "I am getting on a plane," Trenton said decisively. "I will be there tonight." "Trenton, you do not have to. I want to. Let me take care of you." He showed up at her apartment 8 hours later with bags of groceries and medicine. Rebecca opened the door looking terrible, her hair unwashed and still in pajamas, and Trenton just pulled her into his arms. "I missed you," he said simply. He spent the next 2 days nursing her back to health, making her soup and tea, sitting with her while she slept fitfully on the couch. When her fever finally broke, Rebecca woke to find him asleep in the chair next to the couch, his hand still holding hers. "Trenton," she whispered. His eyes opened immediately. "How are you feeling?" "Better, much better." She squeezed his hand. "Thank you for coming. There is nowhere else I would be." They flew to the island together 2 days later. When the seaplane touched down in the lagoon and Rebecca saw the house on the hill, relief washed over her so powerfully that she felt tears prickling her eyes. She really was home. The first few weeks back on the island were blissful. Rebecca threw herself into her photography, creating a portfolio of landscape work that she was genuinely proud of. Trenton helped her build a darkroom in one of the unused rooms of the house so she could experiment with film photography. They took the yacht on day trips to neighboring islands, snorkeling in coral reefs and hiking to waterfalls. In the evenings, they cooked dinner together, learning each other's preferences and quirks. Trenton liked everything spicy. Rebecca had a weakness for chocolate. He was an early riser. She preferred to stay up late. They navigated these differences with humor and patience, building a life together piece by piece. A month after Rebecca moved to the island permanently, Trenton took her to a spot she had not seen before, a small clearing in the jungle where wildflowers grew in riotous color. "This is beautiful," Rebecca said, already reaching for her camera. "Why did you not show me this before?" "I wanted to wait for the right moment." Trenton caught her hand before she could start shooting. "There is something I need to tell you." Rebecca's stomach flipped. His expression was serious, almost nervous. "What is it?" "I have been alone for a long time because I was afraid. Afraid of being hurt, afraid of people wanting me for my money, afraid of losing myself again in the demands of relationships and society. I thought isolation was the answer." He stepped closer, cupping her face in his hands. "But you showed me that I was not protecting myself. I was just slowly disappearing. You brought me back to life, Rebecca." "Trenton, let me finish," he smiled. "I know we have not been together that long. I know this is fast, but I also know that I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep holding you every night. I want to travel the world with you, help you chase your dreams, build a family with you if that is what you want. I want everything, as long as it is with you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring. It was simple and elegant, a single diamond set in platinum. "Will you marry me?" Rebecca was crying, happiness bubbling up from somewhere deep inside. "Yes, yes, of course yes." Trenton slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her, and Rebecca thought that she had never imagined her life could feel this full, this right. They were married 3 months later on the beach at sunset, with just Sarah and a local officiant present. Rebecca wore a simple white dress she had found in a boutique on the mainland, and flowers in her hair that Trenton had picked that morning. He wore a suit but no tie, his feet bare in the sand. The ceremony was short and sweet. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Trenton picked Rebecca up and spun her around, both of them laughing with pure joy. The first year of marriage was an adjustment, as all marriages are. They had their first real fight 3 months in, when Trenton made a major decision about the island without consulting Rebecca first. She felt like he did not see her as an equal partner, and he felt blindsided by her anger. They spent a tense day barely speaking before finally sitting down and talking it through. "I am used to making all decisions alone," Trenton admitted. "I forgot that I do not have to do that anymore. I am sorry." "I am not trying to control everything," Rebecca said. "I just want to be included in things that affect both of us." They promised to communicate better, and they did. The next time a big decision came up, Trenton made sure they discussed it together first. Rebecca learned to voice her opinions instead of assuming he would just figure out what she was thinking. They fell into new rhythms, new patterns. Rebecca started submitting her work to magazines and galleries, and to her shock, people responded. A gallery in New York wanted to do a show of her landscape photography. A travel magazine offered her an assignment in Iceland. "I know you do not love traveling," Rebecca said to Trenton when she told him about Iceland. "I can go alone if I am coming with you," Trenton interrupted. "We are a team, remember? Your dreams are my dreams." Iceland was everything Rebecca had hoped for and more. They spent 2 weeks chasing the northern lights, photographing ice caves and volcanic beaches, eating fresh fish and soaking in hot springs. Trenton surprised her by loving the adventure of it, the challenge of navigating a foreign place together. "We should do this more," he said one night as they watched the aurora dance across the sky. "Travel, see the world. The island will always be there when we want to go home." They traveled to New Zealand next, then Japan, then Norway. Rebecca's photography career took off as she documented their journeys, and Trenton found himself enjoying being back in the world. He started consulting for tech startups, offering advice and funding to companies he believed in. He was careful not to let it consume him like before, but it felt good to use his skills again. 2 years into their marriage, Rebecca started feeling sick in the mornings. At first, she thought it was something she ate, but when it persisted for a week, she took a pregnancy test. 2 lines. Positive. Rebecca stared at the test for a long time, emotions swirling through her. They had talked about having kids someday, but they had not been actively trying. This was a surprise, but as the shock wore off, she realized she was happy. Thrilled, even. Trenton was in the garden when she found him. She walked up behind him and wrapped her arms around his waist. "I have news," she said. He turned in her arms, immediately picking up on her tone. "What kind of news?" "The good kind. The really, really good kind." She took his hand and placed it on her stomach. "You are going to be a father." Trenton's eyes went wide. "You are pregnant?" "Yes." He let out a shout of joy that probably scared all the birds out of the nearby trees, then picked her up and spun her around just like he had on their wedding day. When he set her down, there were tears in his eyes. "We are having a baby," he said wonderingly. "We are going to be parents. Are you happy?" Happy does not even begin to cover it. He kissed her deeply. "I love you so much." The pregnancy was mostly easy, though Rebecca had terrible heartburn and her feet swelled up in the last trimester. Trenton was attentive to the point of being overbearing, constantly asking if she needed anything, worrying about every little thing. "I am not fragile," Rebecca reminded him when he tried to carry her up the stairs for the third time that week. "I am pregnant, not injured." I know, I just want to take care of you. You are taking care of me, but you also need to let me do things myself." They flew to the mainland in the final month of her pregnancy, so they would be close to a hospital. Trenton rented a beautiful apartment with a view of the ocean, and they set up a nursery in the second bedroom. Rebecca went into labor on a Tuesday afternoon. Trenton was calm and collected until they actually got to the hospital, and then he fell apart, pacing the room and asking the nurses constantly if everything was okay. "Trenton," Rebecca said during a contraction, "you need to relax. You are making me nervous." I am sorry. He sat down and took her hand. "I am just scared." "Me too. But we are doing this together, right? Together." Their daughter was born just after midnight, tiny and perfect with a shock of dark hair. They named her Alina, and Trenton cried when he held her for the first time. "She is so small," he whispered, his voice full of wonder. "She is perfect," Rebecca said, exhausted but happier than she had ever been. Being parents was harder than either of them expected. Alina was a terrible sleeper, and for the first few months, they existed in a haze of exhaustion and dirty diapers. But there were also moments of pure magic, like when Alina first smiled at them, or when she wrapped her tiny hand around Trenton's finger and held on tight. They moved back to the island when Alina was 3 months old. Rebecca had been worried that raising a child in such isolation might be lonely, but they made it work. They hired a nanny to help a few days a week, and they took turns so each of them could have time for their work. They video called with family and friends regularly, and they took Alina on trips to the mainland so she could socialize with other children. When Alina was 2, Rebecca got pregnant again. This time with twins, 2 boys they named Oliver and Thomas. The house that had once seemed huge suddenly felt very small with 3 children under the age of 3. "We need more help," Trenton said one night after all 3 kids had finally fallen asleep. They were both collapsed on the couch, too tired to move. "Agreed. I am going to call that agency tomorrow and see if we can get another nanny. And maybe a house manager, someone to help coordinate everything. Look at us getting a staff," Rebecca joked. "Very billionaire of you. You married a billionaire, you get billionaire perks." He pulled her closer. "I could not do this without you, you know. You are an amazing mother. You are an amazing father. Even if you do let Alina talk you into 3 bedtime stories every night instead of 1. She has me wrapped around her finger and she knows it." Life was chaotic with 3 small children, but it was also full of love and laughter. Alina was curious and adventurous, always asking questions and exploring. Oliver was quiet and thoughtful, content to sit and observe. Thomas was the wild one, always getting into trouble and making them laugh with his antics. As the children grew, so did their family's adventures. They traveled together, introducing Alina, Oliver, and Thomas to different cultures and landscapes. Rebecca continued her photography work, now incorporating her children into her art, capturing the way they experience the world. Trenton built a business empire from the island, investing in dozens of companies and mentoring young entrepreneurs. But he never lost sight of what was most important. He made sure to be present for every milestone, every school play once they hired tutors for the kids, every scraped knee and bad dream. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Trenton surprised Rebecca with a trip back to the spot where he had proposed. The wildflowers were in bloom again, just as they had been that day. 10 years, Rebecca said, looking at the man she had fallen in love with. He was older now, with some gray starting to show in his hair, but he was still the same person who had caught her when she collapsed on his doorstep. "Can you believe it? Some days it feels like 10 years. Other days it feels like we just met." Trenton took her hands. "Thank you for crashing onto my island," Rebecca laughed. "Thank you for not kicking me off. Best decision I ever made." He kissed her softly. "Here is to 10 more years. And 10 more after that, and however many more we get." "I will take all of them," Rebecca said. "Every single one." They walked back to the house hand in hand, where their 3 children were waiting with a cake they had decorated themselves. It was lopsided and covered in too much frosting, and it was the most beautiful thing Rebecca had ever seen. That night, after the kids were in bed and the house was quiet, Rebecca and Trenton sat on the deck watching the stars. The sound of the ocean was a constant rhythm beneath their conversation, just as it had been for the past 10 years. "You ever regret it?" Trenton asked. "Giving up your old life? Sometimes I worry that I took you away from something important." Rebecca turned to look at him, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes. Even after all these years, he still worried that she might wake up one day and realize she had made a mistake. "Not for a single second," she said firmly. "Trenton, before I met you, I was sleepwalking through my life. I was doing what I thought I was supposed to do, being who I thought I was supposed to be. You did not take me away from anything. You woke me up." "You woke me up too," he said quietly. "I had convinced myself that isolation was freedom, but really I was just hiding. You made me want to live again." "Then I guess we saved each other." "I guess we did." Rebecca leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling completely at peace. The island, this life they had built together, their children sleeping safely inside, Trenton beside her, it was everything she had never known to dream of. The years continued to unfold in a beautiful pattern of ordinary moments and extraordinary love. Alina grew into a teenager with her father's analytical mind and her mother's artistic eye. She wanted to be an architect, to design buildings that made people feel the way her mother's photographs made them feel. Oliver discovered a passion for marine biology, spending hours studying the ocean life around the island. Thomas remained the wild card, interested in everything and nothing, keeping them on their toes. On their 20th anniversary, Trenton and Rebecca renewed their vows on the same beach where they had gotten married. This time, their 3 children stood beside them as witnesses, and Sarah flew in with her own husband and 2 kids. "I knew you two were going to make it," Sarah said at the small reception afterwards. "From the moment I heard the way you talked about him on the phone that first week. You sounded different, happy." "I am happy," Rebecca said, watching Trenton dance with Alina while the boys tried to dunk each other in the pool. "Happier than I ever imagined possible." As the sun set on their 20th anniversary, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Rebecca thought about the yacht explosion that had brought her here. At the time, it had seemed like a disaster, like the worst night of her life. But it had led her to Trenton, to this island, to the family they had created together. Sometimes the worst moments led to the best outcomes. Sometimes getting lost was the only way to find where you truly belonged. Trenton came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist, just as he had done 1,000 times before. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "How lucky I am. How grateful." She turned in his arms to face him. "How much I love you. I love you too. More today than yesterday and less than tomorrow." It was something he had started saying years ago, and it never failed to make her smile, because it was true. Their love had not stayed static. It had grown and evolved, deepening with every challenge they overcame together, every joy they shared, every ordinary day that became extraordinary simply because they were living it together. The children grew up and eventually left the island for college, though they always came back for holidays and summers. The house felt empty without their noise and chaos, but Trenton and Rebecca discovered they enjoyed having time alone together again. They traveled more extensively, took up new hobbies, spent long, lazy mornings in bed. When Alina got married at 25, she chose to have the wedding on the island. "This is where our family started," she said. "It is where love started for me. I cannot imagine getting married anywhere else." Oliver brought his boyfriend home to meet them when he was 27, nervous about their reaction. Trenton and Rebecca welcomed him with open arms, and by the end of the weekend, they were already joking about needing to expand the house for future grandchildren. Thomas ended up becoming a pilot, flying small planes between islands. He brought his wife home when he was 30, a marine conservationist who immediately fell in love with the island's ecosystem. Within a year, she was pregnant, and Trenton and Rebecca became grandparents for the first time. Holding his grandson for the first time, Trenton had tears in his eyes. "I never thought I would have this," he said to Rebecca. "A family, grandchildren, all of this. You gave me everything." "We gave it to each other," Rebecca corrected. As they moved into their 60s, Trenton and Rebecca remained as in love as they had been at the beginning. They held hands without thinking about it. They still kissed goodbye even if one of them was just going to another room. They made each other laugh every single day. Rebecca's photography had made her famous in artistic circles, her collections hanging in museums and galleries around the world. But her favorite photographs were not the ones that won awards. They were the candid shots of her family, the moments of joy and love she had captured over the years. Those were the images that told the real story of her life. Trenton had become a philanthropist, using his wealth to fund environmental conservation projects and educational programs. He had never gone back to the corporate world, never missed it. The island remained his sanctuary, the place where he could breathe. On their 50th wedding anniversary, the entire family gathered on the island. All 3 of their children, their spouses, and 6 grandchildren filled the house with noise and love. They threw a huge party on the beach, with music and dancing and a cake even more elaborate than the lopsided one the kids had made for their 10th anniversary. As the party wound down and the grandchildren were put to bed, Rebecca and Trenton slipped away to their favorite spot, the cliff overlooking the ocean where he had first told her he loved her decades ago. 50 years, Rebecca said, still amazed by the passage of time. Half a century. Best 50 years of my life, Trenton said. Though I am biased since I did not really start living until I met you. We were so young, Rebecca mused. I was 26 when I washed up on your beach. You were 32. We had no idea what we were doing. We figured it out together. He pulled her close. Thank you for staying. Thank you for building this life with me. Thank you for catching me when I fell, Rebecca said, and she meant it in every possible way. They stood there for a long time, watching the moon reflect on the water, listening to the sound of their children's laughter drifting up from the house below. This island that had once been Trenton's escape from the world had become the center of a whole universe of love and family and connection. As they walked back to the house hand in hand, Rebecca thought about the young woman who had swum desperately to this shore all those years ago, scared and alone. She wished she could go back and tell that woman that everything was going to be okay. Better than okay. That the disaster she had just survived was actually the beginning of the greatest adventure of her life. But she could not go back, and that was fine. Because she was exactly where she was meant to be, with exactly who she was meant to be with. Trenton had been a stranger who did not want guests on his private island. Now he was her husband, the father of her children, the love of her life. They had built something beautiful together on this island, a legacy of love that would continue long after they were gone. Inside the house, their family was waiting. Their daughter was telling stories that made everyone laugh. Their sons were playing with their children, being the kind of present, loving fathers they had learned to be from Trenton. Their spouses were cleaning up from the party, already part of the family in every way that mattered. This was their life. This was their love story. It had started with an explosion and a desperate swim, with a grumpy billionaire and a lost photographer, with two people who had given up on finding connection, finding it in the most unexpected place. And it was perfect. Every messy, chaotic, beautiful moment of it was absolutely perfect. Rebecca would not change a single thing. She had been shipwrecked on his private island by accident, had become the guest the billionaire did not want to leave, and in the process, they had both found their way home.